Welcome back to the Stan Simpson Show, here with Reverend Garland Higgins as new organization, God's Glorious Girls. You're taking now young women and you're talking to them about teen dating violence, sort of a unique niche. Why that particular topic, and what's the bigger issue here?
Well, that topic is a passion of mine.
Why?
Well, number one, because I'm a domestic violence survivor. I was married for 10 years, married my high school sweetheart, and when I think back on it, a lot of the warning signs were there that I was in an abusive relationship, but really didn't understand what was going on. You know, at that time, at that age, we think it's love. So,
what were those signs? People hearing it on TV, what were the first 2 or 3 signs?
Controlling, telling you what to wear, where you can go, where you can't go, trying to really control everything about you from the beginning to the end, you know, or the physical abuse, emotional, telling you what you can't do, you know, although you're trying to make goals for yourself, you have someone distracting you or calling you names, or constantly calling you, wanting to know your whereabouts, just little things like that, and you don't really recognize it. And it's become a passion of mine because in listening to a lot of other testimony for people who've been in that same situation, it all started when they were young. In a young relationship, the same thing. There's always this pattern. So I thought if I try to reach young people, maybe this would help them learn how to have healthy relationships.
So where do you start, and why is it starting so young? Where, if it's starting at an early age, why are young men doing that? Is it something from learning from what's happening at home? Is it lack of a father, lack of a poor father? Where are they getting that habit?
It could be, but it's not just young men. Girls are hitting boys, boys are hitting girls. It's going back and forth. So you can't really pinpoint it in one particular direction. And it could be that they're seeing it in the home, or they may be insecure or with themselves and not having enough confidence in the relationship, or really knowing what a real relationship is. So when they think they're losing power or control, then they try to hurt the other person. It may be that one person doesn't want the relationship to continue and the other one is afraid of losing, so now they feel like if they control the person, they can try to keep them at bay, try to keep them down.
So I'm assuming the biggest issue here is how to get out of that, right? Because I guess the real question is, why don't people leave? If you're in a relationship, someone is abusive, right, at what point do you leave, or why don't folks leave earlier?
Well, oftentimes it's out of fear, or it could be embarrassment, because we've been painting a picture to your friends and family that this is a great relationship, and then now that you're thinking about leaving, you have all these things to think about. But there's also risks. Sometimes it's better to stay in the relationship and try to make things work, because the risk is higher especially when you're being physically abused, because the person now is feeling like they're going to lose control if you leave, so now they're going to try to hurt that person to keep them, or no one else can have them,
right? You
know, or something along that line. So there's a lot of risks to leaving, because people don't realize that the risk of life or death is much higher when you try to walk away.
And you're saying a couple of things you mentioned in talking to young women. Some things you want them to know is that, one, that they are not alone. A lot of times they go through the situation, they think it's only them, so they can internalize. So let's talk about that telling young girls that they are not alone in going through this.
They're certainly not alone. I mean, I graduated from high school in 1987, and at that time I was in an abusive relationship, but not really aware of it.
But you didn't know that you thought it was only you then,
thought
right?
It was only me. And the more I talk to people now, we're going through something very similar at that same time.
Right.
But I had no idea. We weren't in dialogue, and we keep it suppressed. We don't want people to know. We're embarrassed. We don't want to tell anybody. So we walk around carrying this weight, assuming that we're the only one in this situation.
The essence of counseling, though, right, that most people going through drama, whether it's alcoholism or abuse, whatever, they always think it's only them. It's only until they realize that it is a problem that it helps them to heal, right? They realize that, gee, it's not just them, and the only person in the world going through it is that person.
Right.
Right.
And then and some people have a fear of going to counseling. There are people who go to counseling just for themselves to keep their sanity, but then they may be afraid, well, what if he or she finds out I'm going to counseling? They may hurt me or discourage me or make me feel bad for trying to do something better for myself.
So let's take a look again, some tips on reminding teens in dating trouble. One, they're not alone, right? Number two, it's not their fault, because now you tend to internalize. Talk about that.
It's definitely not their fault, and they should never, ever, ever accept abuse from anyone, whether it's from a family member, a boyfriend or girlfriend, or anyone that they know, because it's not acceptable. But it's hard sometimes because that individual may not be comfortable with themselves, may not know their self-worth, and may think that I can't do better than this.
Well, kind of ties into that you're not alone. If you think that you're alone, then you think maybe it's your fault because no one else is going through this drama, right? Until you realize that other people have the same problem. Right. Let's talk about the third issue real quick, about 30 seconds. A safety plan. Have a safety plan.
Oh, absolutely, because the minute you decide that you want to leave, try to come up with a plan. Maybe have a code word with a friend or family member. When I call and I say the word busy, that means call 911 or something like that, to help the person be able to escape without the other person knowing what's going on.
But if you've got to develop a safety plan, isn't that a telltale sign that you already way past the point of trying to save this thing, right?
Yes, you are way past that point, but again, the risk is a lot higher if you try to just walk away, and it's common knowledge to the other individual.
And finally, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You have to really try to keep it low so that it's not known by many people or known by your significant other what you're trying to do.
And finally, there are resources out there, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And that's another thing. 2 or 3 examples. What's out there if someone's going through that, is afraid, is alone? How can they get help? Where do they go first?
Well, God's Glorious Girls, that's what we're here for.
And how they reach you?
We offer spiritual counseling. I can be reached at godsgloriousgirls@gmail.com or through danceforlord69@yahoo.com.
Okay, all right. So in 30 seconds, the biggest thing is you're not alone. Your help is out there, right?
And have a safety plan.
All right. She's Reverend Garland Higgins. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. I want to thank all our guests, Mary Ellen Fillo, John Altavilla, Reverend Garland Higgins. You can send your show comments or requests or watch us again at ctnow.com/Stan, and friend us on Facebook. Become a fan of the Stan Simpson Show. We're on Twitter, too. Look out for our tweets for the good folks here at Fox Syndicate. I'm Stan Simpson. We'll see you next week.